Hello hackers, in this screencast I'm going to be talking about HTML and CSS, two languages that are used in literally every web page on the internet that you've probably come into uh, contact with. So if you navigate your browser to the Microsoft web page, you'll see just like any other web page, it has certain elements on the page. It has a search box, right? It has links, it has a logo, it has this box, um, and you can see that if you click on something on the web page and try inspect element if you're in Chrome, you'll see it pops up a bunch of HTML. Really complicated HTML, but HTML nonetheless. And then CSS on the side, which is divided into several sections. You guys don't know what that is yet, but don't worry about it. Right? So essentially, what you can do is even edit this HTML in the browser. So I'm sort of mischievous, so I'm going to change it to can't. Honestly, with my Windows tab, I can't get things done anywhere. Right? And so it's just pretty simple to, like, you can edit little parts of the page even though you don't understand the whole thing. And so that brings me to the point that you have an HTML page, you first have your h3 and then you add the class and the type and whatnot. So it's not as difficult as it first looks, right? So let's actually make our first HTML and CSS document. You could use Notepad or just some random program on the Mac that I'm not sure about, but I would recommend using Sublime Text 2, which is geared towards beginners and has a lot of cool features. SublimeText.com is where you can get it. You can see that it's pretty colorful. Um, very, very useful features, actually. Right. So there's a couple different things we need to go over first. You have to realize that HTML itself is just a markup language for web content. So this is going to be the bare bones of your application. This is going to be the text. These are going to be the links, that kind of thing. The actual content that goes on your web page. And the reason it's called a markup language is because it has these tags, right? So you have a beginning tag and an ending tag for this HTML, and then an entire document, everything in your HTML document needs to go in between these tags, whether it's random letters or hello world, all the stuff needs to go in between these two tags, and that's why you have these beginning and ending tags. Another type of element you have standalone element. This is a line break element, BR. We can talk about that later in this tutorial. But basically, this is a standalone tag. It doesn't have a beginning and an end. It merely exists. So these are the things you can do in HTML. Similarly, you have CSS, another language. These two are connected forever. You really usually don't have HTML without CSS. But basically, it's a style sheet language for web design. So you make CSS style sheets that add certain designs to your HTML, whether it be the color, font, or say, what else? You could have the positioning, the elements on your web page, that kind of thing. So that's what CSS is used for. So let's go ahead and create a new HTML page. It's called example.html, nothing too fancy. And we'll be creating a biography for Elon Musk. Now you can see after I typed HTML and press tab, I have all this code written for me. That's just the thing I have set up in Sublime Text 2. You're going to have to type this out, sorry. But you can see right away that everything is surrounded in this HTML tag. And then you have two different sections after that. You have the head and the body sections. So head just provides a bunch of information about the web page. You could write biography, Elon Musk, save that, and then open it up in your browser. So it should be the default. And it works, right? So you'll notice that although there's no content on the page, the title updated to be what we change it to be. So this brings us to how most people end up doing design or whatever. They press Command S and save on this screen, and press Command R and refresh to see their changes in the browser. So let's get started with actually putting stuff on the page. There are a couple different tags that we're going to be talking about. There's H1, H2, all the way to H6, and these are header tags. And you can see that once I add this H1 tag, let's say, and I say Elon Musk, it looks really big. And then if I have an H3 tag, let's say, saying synopsis, it's going to be smaller. And that's the idea. These are all headings, and then some headings are smaller than others. So refresh, right? So this is a header 1, header size 3. All this stuff is just from this one web page I found, like it's an Elon Musk biography. Right, and then it gives us the synopsis. I'm super lazy, so I'll just copy this over. Whoops. What am I doing? Alright, okay. And this stuff is going to go in a paragraph tag, and that's going to be denoted with that P right there. Okay. You might want to notice that you have to indent all of the things in between the body. It just makes things clearer and your life easier when your code actually does get as complicated as that Microsoft page, right? Alright, so this is our web page. Let's make it look a little cooler. Let's add a line in between. This is an HR tag. Right? Yay, there's a line there. But right now, it looks, the HTML page in general just looks really drab. Let's change that. Let's add some CSS and make it look pretty. Alright? So, like we said before, CSS is just a style sheet language for web design. So you'd have to specify your selector. That could just be one of these elements, right? So it could be, say, H3 or P, or it could be both, or it could be all of the elements. And then you'd specify an attribute and a value. An example of this would be, say, you wanted to change all of the text in paragraphs to be centered or something like that. That's something you could do, then everything would be centered. So let's actually create a CSS page. In addition to actually writing the CSS and creating the document, there is one other thing we have to do. So let's do that after we create our page. So let's call it example.css. And then let's link to it in our HTML page so we can actually use it. Don't forget that, otherwise your CSS will not work out. I just pressed linked and typed all this code for me. Usually this code stays constant, so all you have to do is add the name of the style sheet. We haven't added anything in it, so we should do that. Not paragraph, but let's select all of our elements and go ahead and center them. Text align, center. Instant gratification. Command S, Command R. Yay, it's all centered. That helps, but let's say I don't want to have all of it centered. I just want to have the headers, the H1s, the H1 and the H3 centered. We can do that too. We could do H1 like this and have just that centered. If we wanted to add H3, just add a comma and do this. H1, comma, H3, and text align center. That works too. So these are just cool things. It still looks ugly. You know what I really don't like? I don't like Times New Roman. So I'm going to change the font of all these things. And something a lot of people like to do is use a Google font. It's a service that Google provides. Google Fonts. Click on the first search link. I like the font Lotto. Add it to your collection. Use it. Gives you some code to use. This is a link to an external style sheet. Usually the style sheet is stored on our computer, right? Example.css. But instead, you can see that it's stored here at an internet address with an HTTP address, right? So, forgot to change the CSS page again. That's not smart. Cool thing is it gives us some code here as well. Font family, Lotto, and sans serif. And basically what this does is that font family is basically like the font type. And it'll use Lotto, and if for some reason you're not connected to the internet and can't connect to Google Fonts, it'll go ahead and try to pull up a sans serif font, which is available on every computer. Awesome, now not everything. Oh, whoops, we forgot that this only affects H1 and H3. Let's have it work on everything. Try that star selector or something that we talked about before. Cool. What else can we do now? Honestly, CSS and HTML, if you don't know how to do something, just Google it. Let's say I wanted to make the background color of Elon, this header. Let's say I wanted to make it red or something. Just Google background color CSS. Awesome, it's working out. Oh, by the way, don't use W3 Schools. Like any references from them. because of the fact that they're just unreliable. Sometimes they have code that doesn't work and stuff. They're outdated and things like that. So I would use the Mozilla Developer Network. That's often useful. You can see that it gives you some code. You can make the background color red of H1. What I'm gonna do actually is have a common practice that when you're using CSS, you often end up adding divs and spans around things. This is because of the fact that you'd want to apply, say, a style to an H1 and say you had a button in there or something. You want to add a style to both of those. Let's say you wanted to center it, you wanted to make the background red there or something like that. You'd put a div around it. And then how you change these divs is that you go ahead and add these classes usually and or IDs, and